So, what episode are we on? Welcome to episode 27 of the podcast, where we speak to Hannah Argyll. She's awesome. She's from Northampton, like us. She is a fantastic photographer and influencer, I guess, as you would bracket that term nowadays.
Yeah. She said she didn't really like that term very much, but
I know, yeah.
But yeah.
She inspires me to go and take photos, that's for sure.
Yeah. She's definitely like a bit different, probably to some of the other people we spoke to before, in terms of the sort of work that she's producing and the type of work that she does, like the brands that she works with as a photographer.
But very much still has her own flair on the work that she produces. And I think she's been doing it for so long now that she has her own style of taking those photos, which I don't know, I'm really drawn to, maybe because I can somewhat relate to even though she's got like a family and stuff like that, it's still relatable in terms of the location that she goes to, or how maybe I would like my photos to look sometimes. Her photos always look really clean and nice. Cool. And it's nice to, we spoke to her about her kind of day-to-day work life, I guess, and how she balances her work-life balance with it, and the changes of how she's had to adapt with social media changing and things like that, and understanding how she kind of puts everything together. But
it's definitely a good one to listen to in terms of like she is making a living off of Instagram, and she joined Instagram without the that I don't think that was what was in mind, but she found herself doing that and has built like a massive following.
And she's been really transparent. She was really transparent with us, wasn't she, in terms of how she's gone through different waves of it working and not working, and how to find that balance. Like I said, that kind of work-life balance of not waking up every day and feeling like you've got to be on your phone. Till the minute you have to go to bed. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. It was really nice to speak to her. I'm sure we'll speak to her again in the future.
But anyway, it's a really long episode, so we're going to stop talking and go and watch it.
Enjoy. Hannah Argyll, go follow on Instagram and support. John Moore, please.
Do you want to kick off then, Jamie? You're good at that.
Well, I was only going to ask, how did you get into photography?
It's sort of quite a dull story, really. I got into Instagram and that was where it all started. So I think after my youngest was born, I downloaded Instagram and started using it regularly about a year later. And I kind of discovered a creative outlet, really, which I found I was really lacking. Looking after young children all day is great, but it's sort of, you don't really use your brain. And I had a creative job already, but I was kind of rushing around, squeezing in work in between baby naps and things like that, and suddenly found this outlet, which I came from a background of drawing and painting and fine art, and always found that my work was not quite what I wanted it to be, whereas suddenly I took up photography and it actually worked. When you think, I really want to take a photo like that, and I took it and it actually kind of fulfilled me, so which was quite a pleasantly surprising thing. And I just started meeting people on Instagram, and people were very supportive and chatty, and so that was where it all began, really.
That's really cool, because that's not kind of like I would say your traditional kind of entry into kind of photography. But me and Luke were saying that we love your photography because it's really good, but then it's also very, I feel like I'm following your kind of journey through life, which is what I kind of said when I posted some of your work on on our account, and it's really interesting to see, almost like your day to day. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I know you've got a lot of fingers in different pies, but you kind of your consistent posts they're really, they're beautiful photos, but they're really relatable. It's not like you're just a portrait photographer or just a landscape photographer. It's just kind of where you are and what you're doing, and you know how to use a camera clearly, and you get the best results from that. So yeah, it's really nice.
Thank you. It's really nice to hear that, because it can be a bit of a challenge to know where you should fall with Instagram. And it's been a bit of a learning curve for me, because I think, these days people know that you can earn a living through having a lot of followers on social media. But when I started gaining followers, it wasn't really anything. There was maybe some YouTubers earning money, but it wasn't something I set out to do. It just kind of happened. And then you sort of go through that whole, am I sharing too much? Where is my line? Where am I comfortable with all of this and having lots of eyes on you? So yeah. It's definitely been, I've been learning on the job,
You've been a lot more kind of like stable now in terms of where you are and what you're doing, because I'm guessing, like, when you started doing it, it wasn't like you had any kind of plan to, you must be posting a photo every day or a week, or have any kind of idea what you're kind of going to be shooting. Do you kind of have that now? Do you have a bit more of a routine that's easier to manage?
Yeah, I think I do. And I can remember as my kind of first year as a photographer rolled by, thinking it's spring again or it's autumn again. I know how to shoot this season now because I've done it before. Yeah. And if the weather's too bad to shoot outside, I know I can create content inside. And so you do kind of go through a process, I think, of repetition to an extent, but I know now how to find ways to inspire myself by maybe just going out on a day trip or going somewhere with my camera, or I sort of, I think it's a process which you find repeating as you just learn and grow as a photographer, I guess, and find your feet with it all. But it was definitely all completely unknown to me at the beginning.
But you still enjoy it though?
I do. I absolutely love it. And I think, like with any creative job, your confidence comes and goes with it. Yeah. And obviously, pandemic-wise, that's been tricky. I was traveling quite a lot before that, and so obviously none of that happened. And so you find yourself, do I just keep posting old travel photos, or do I? We literally weren't allowed to go anywhere, were we, to begin with. So I couldn't even go out and shoot a blossom tree nearby or a field of wheat. It was literally, you don't go in the car and don't go anywhere. So that was quite challenging. So
at least you can take photos inside. I can't do it. I don't know what it is. I just struggle so much. I always have a day where I'm like, I'm going to take some, like, even if I'm just picking up some random things around the house to start shooting, or taking photos of the dog. I always struggle. I don't know what it is. I feel more comfortable using my phone.
Yeah, it's finding one photo spot that really works for you. I have like a sort of a little bit of wall that's about 1 meter long in my bedroom, and it's just got a small window to the side and then the big bay window. So it's kind of well lit, but it's got this really nice little window which is just directly lighting that spot. And for years that was the only spot in my house where I could really take photos inside. So I set up different scenarios in that spot, and now that I've got the photography studio and stuff, that has expanded, and I have different other areas in my house that work. But it's all been a lot to do with just having to get to grips with it, because I would get offered a job, can you shoot this product? And I'd be like, yeah, it'll be fine, I'll work it out. Google. So a lot of it is I've just been winging it, really.
Best way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah. That's what you've always said to me, Luke, just say yes and then work out how to do it afterwards.
I think the more you go through life, the more you realise everyone's winging it. And you're talking to somebody who's given you the job, and then you realise they're actually winging it as well, and they're giving you a brief, but they're liaising with a client, and we're all kind of winging it to an extent. So you just got to crack on a little bit, and what's the worst that can happen?
I guess that's what we're kind of trying to find. We're trying to find our feet. Obviously we're working on what we're building at the moment. Obviously we're building the website, but we both work full time, and we're doing the podcasts, and we're, you know, trying to make videos at the same time as well, and everything just seems like, oh, we've got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, and we've got to just learn to find that balance, I guess, or find a bit more of a manageable routine to keep to, I guess. But it'll come.
I don't know how you're doing everything you're doing at the moment. It seems
no sleep.
I think it's sustainable for so long, and well, that's what I found anyway. I could keep it up for so long, and then I don't know, you sort of lose energy or enthusiasm, or at some point you have to, like you say, you have to find a kind of a level where you can maintain the energy for it all.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose when you've got, like, if you've got a following on social media like you do, where they'll miss you if you don't post something, I guess. And like I'm so sporadic with posting to Instagram, but, you know, I've got like 1/10 of the followers, or not even that, you know, 1% of what you have. So it doesn't really matter. I can just post something, not post something for days. But do you find you have to be a bit more sort of on the ball with it than that?
A little bit, and I think it's become more difficult over the years because Instagram as an app tends to punish you for not being present. And I think it's become more and more like they want you to be actively addicted, and now you open the app and there's stories to watch, and there's reels to watch, and there's photos to look at, and there's carousels.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they just want to keep people on the app, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And it used to be a very calm, very still place, and it was, you know, 95% still images, and there was a real kind of mindfulness to the whole of Instagram somehow. I don't know whether that was just the communities that I was involved in, but it was certainly very easy to find that side of it, whereas now it's kind of a little bit all singing, all dancing, and things are being hurled at you really fast. And for people like me, we're constantly being told, if you're not posting 3 reels a week, then you're going to fail. If you're not doing 1 IGTV a day, you have to be going live at least, you know, 4 or 5 times a week. And it's just kind of like, too much. And
I was told
5 stories a day, and not too many and not too few, and make sure you do polls, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, I know. It's you know, as we kind of manage our one, and, you know, our account's growing, but we don't really care about the numbers of followers and stuff like that. We just want people to be engaged in what we're posting. And we actually posted something the other day that, you know, that I kind of wrote out and posted, just saying, you know, we're more than just a sharing account. You know, at the end of the day, we're building something. And it was really interesting because that post has done a lot better than other posts of recent times. And it's because people have stopped on it and read what it says. So if you're looking at that photo for, say, 10 seconds, or what the post for 10 seconds, where normally you'd scroll past it in half a second, Instagram are rewarding you because it's now being shared to more people's accounts, just because it's getting an initial engagement. And it's a real weird one, because at the end of the day, we want to show off people's work, and, you know, whatever they're working on, projects, whatever it might be. It's hard to do that when
I think you
kind
have
of not
to
rewarded.
stick your guns a bit with that, and I've really tried hard to stay true to myself, and I'm not going to start posting reels where I point at funny things and, you know, do silly dances, because it's just not me. And there's so many other people doing that stuff really, really well that there's absolutely no point in me trying to compete with them. So even though Instagram is saying essentially they don't want people like me anymore, they don't want people posting photos, or for it to be a photography app, that is what I'm there doing, and I assume it's why people are following me, because they're not following me for funny dances. So I think to an extent you've got to just persevere with what it is that you want to put out there. And, you know, like you were saying about the engagement on posts, I see it myself. Like if I post a story with a poll in that lots of people vote on, or even just something slightly controversial, that story gets viewed sometimes like 3 or 4 times the number of people who usually view my stories. And so it becomes a bit of a trap, and you think, well, I could share something controversial or something very personal, or put out some very personal news, but actually I don't want to do that, and I never have done. So I'm always trying to kind of avoid falling into that trap, really. Invite people in and then shut them out again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think there's a lot of people out there who, like you say, they don't want to be viewing reels or that kind of thing, and that sort of thing does appeal to other people. But I mean, personally, I think that's what TikTok's for. Just go and watch them on there if you really want that sort of thing. And maybe they should leave Instagram to, you know, be its own thing, but they've got shareholders to please, I guess, who want to see ads being shown and engagement and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a shame because there's so many people who've gotten into photography because they've started using Instagram, like yourself. And naturally, when I think about it, I downloaded Instagram in about 2010, I think, like not long after it came out. And that was before I bought a proper camera. So like really, because I was using that so much more, I think that's probably why I decided, oh, I'm going to get a camera and start shooting, you know, properly, as it were. I think my phone didn't work properly, so it was really hard to upload stuff to Instagram. But yeah, it is a shame that they're kind of sidelining that sort of thing. But
it is. I think, you know, they're trying hard to sideline it, but I do think that photo sharing community is still very much there, which sometimes it can be harder to find. But that's what I'm telling myself anyway.
But at the same time, like, you know, it doesn't matter how many followers you've got or don't have. You would like. It always reminds me of, there's a photographer called Sean Tucker. I'm sure you've heard of him. But he's, you know, he's a very successful photographer. He's got his own YouTube channel, and he said something along the lines of, "You'd rather have 100 followers that are engaged in everything you do than 10,000 people that don't." Or it was something like that, wasn't it? Really cool.
Yeah, it's a way to think of it.
Yeah, and it's true. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many followers or how many likes you get or anything like that. It's more about the engagement that you get on the stuff that you do post, or, you know, whatever it might be. It's, you know, you're connecting with people then, aren't you, rather than just looking at your phone too much.
Absolutely, and that connection is really lovely. And it's difficult when it becomes a bit of a numbers game, when you are like earning a living from Instagram as well, and that adds a different layer of pressure, really. Especially for me, well, not especially for me, but for people like me, where it's your kind of your main income and you're the breadwinner. So it's you know, losing numbers, losing engagement, those things become literally a matter of, am I going to keep getting work? Am I going to be able to pay bills and all that sort of thing? So it, you know, you do sort of find yourself worrying that you ought to be reinventing yourself, or you ought to be keeping up, or, you know, doing more things and posting more. But the community is definitely there, and the connections, sometimes they just, you know, send you a message or something, you think, oh yeah, it's all worthwhile. So yeah,
there's a YouTube that I follow. He's just a skateboarder, to be honest. Just a skateboarder. He's a very successful skateboarder, but he has his own YouTube channel and he posts a video every day. But on a recent video that he put out, obviously because he's now, you know, an influencer on YouTube, has, somewhat like you do, a schedule to keep. He has to post X amount of things on Instagram, X amount of things on Twitter, X amount on YouTube, whatever it might be. And I know that he uses like an app that like schedules all your posts and stuff like that. So like he says he only goes on Instagram for an hour a day, unless he's casually looking at other people's stuff, but he will only manage his Instagram account for 1 hour a day as part of his kind of like admin.
Yeah.
And in that hour, he will schedule all the posts and stories and whatever it might be that will last that day or that week or whatever it might be, which is quite interesting. I know there's like lots of apps out there that kind of do that thing for you, but at the same time, it was quite cool to hear that it's not someone who just sits there on their phone all day, you know what I mean? Like feeling the pressure and letting it get to you, because at the end of the day, that's not what you kind of got into it for, is to sit on your phone all day. It's to go out and do these things and then document that. Yeah.
You very soon lose what people like about you, don't you, if you're not actually living that life that people want to look at. So it is a balance, and I know lots of people who schedule their posts as well, and I think I don't know, there's maybe a bit of a tipping point when an account or a personality gets to a certain size, and you sort of, maybe if you've got, 800,000 followers, nobody would really expect you to reply to comments or engage or answer direct messages and stuff. But for me, that's all kind of the joy of it, checking out other people's photos who comment on mine, and just really trying to, and I've met so many nice people both online and in real life through engaging in that way. So I would lose a lot of why I do it, I think, if I went to just scheduling posts and not
taking that time to do it.
Yeah, so it's a tricky one, but I did find a point a few years ago where I was feeling I had to post at 8 o'clock in the morning or something, so I should have been getting the kids ready for school, and I'd be like, I just got to finish this, can't get you breakfast, I'm just doing this. And I did kind of think, this is getting ridiculous, I feel like my life has been ruled by what I feel I have to do. I've got to just reply to all these comments, I've got to just do this, I've got to post, I haven't posted for 2 days, the pressure's on. And possibly my account was more successful when I was allowing it to rule my life like that, but it can't be done, and it can't continue.
At the end of the day, there's got to be a work-life balance, isn't it? Even if your work is, what you enjoy and part of your life, you don't want to be getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, starting work, and then you literally, all you're thinking about is that until the second you go to sleep. It's not healthy, is it?
No, it's not the right balance at all, and it's not good for the kids to see that either.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other side of it as well is the actual, like, creating all the stuff that you're going to be posting, taking the actual photos, and but do you spend a long time editing those? Do you have because they've all got, there's such a what's the word, like a distinct aesthetic to what you're posting. So can you like reel off edits really quickly now?
Yeah, to be honest, it's funny because I had a student here today, and I was showing her some of my like before and afters in Lightroom, and most of my photos are quite minimally edited. I think because I tend to find I'm naturally drawn to the same sort of scenarios to shoot, so whether it's soft light or golden hour or certain colors and quite minimal things, so I guess I end up really with a set of images which I find don't need that much editing on the whole. So sometimes I spend longer on an edit, but usually it's a few tweaks, to be honest, a few changes in the color channels. But yeah, I try and post some before and afters on Instagram. Sometimes put the unedited photo up there because it's quite interesting, I think, how it is just a few subtle tweaks rather than a complete change in mood. So I think it's more for me about shooting and finding the right scenarios to shoot, if that makes sense, and the right lighting, all that sort of thing that suits my work and suits my aesthetic. So that just tends to be what I'm naturally drawn to. So
yeah, that's cool.
I like that you said you're drawn to, like, golden hour and soft light. Now, if you're listening to this, Hannah is from the same town as us, and I know for a fact we never get golden hour anymore because all it is grey. So I don't know where you go, but we ain't getting golden hour at the minute.
I know.
To be fair, probably today was probably golden hour, wasn't it? It was sunny today.
And that is also very difficult for me with having children, to be able to leave the house, and sometimes on a beautiful winter morning it's frosty out and I'm in the house on my own with my 2 kids, so there's no going out to shoot at 8 o'clock in the morning, or a night like this, and I see the golden hour come and go, and it's like, well, the local park, but I wouldn't get much there, and
it makes you feel quite like you almost get a bit anxious sometimes. You're like, I can see I'm missing it, and there's nothing you can do.
I know, I've kind of got used to that now.
And then the days like we've had the last week at least, it's just 2 weeks, it's just grey.
we got really into black and white photography, haven't we, in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah.
Something I never thought you'd say, but
No, I'm not really into it, but I have seen the benefit the last couple of weeks, particularly just because Jamie and I took some photos together, and I was shooting in colour, and I was like, what's the point? They look really dull. It's a real shame. But yeah.
There was me with a little smirk on my face, like black and white.
Yeah.
It worked out well.
It's a solution to things like that, definitely.
Yeah. And do you ever, I know obviously you've got your kind of routine of going out and stuff, but do you ever kind of shoot different cameras? Do you ever shoot film or anything like that?
I've shot a little bit of film, and I'm hoping to do more soon. I've only used like a really old vintage camera that I just found in a local vintage shop, and I was actually talking about this today with my student as well, because she wants to do some, and I think it's a brilliant exercise which taught me, or maybe confirmed what I suppose I knew, but I definitely learned a lot about photography, and about the kind of just the craft of image making, if you like. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and so I've actually just inquired at the local camera shop about getting another film camera. I've been meaning to buy one for ages and ages, but I would like one that's a little bit less vintage, because the one I used was fully manual, and you had to kind of guess the distance.
Oh wow.
And set the focus on a little dial, and I think it's about 8 foot away, and it was literally just a box, and the light passed through and onto the film, and so it was I didn't really know what I was going to get. I was light metering on my phone, but it came out, it all worked, and
there you go.
I learned some really useful things doing that. Like I definitely underexposed a couple, metering from the highlights rather than the shadows, and so I learned a few useful pointers, but I'm kind of itching to try again now.
It's cool that you've got, forget about the kind of film or digital side of things, but it's good that you've still got the passion to learn yourself, even though you know how to take the photo that kind of you enjoy taking, and kind of you know that people know you for, sort of thing, but you've still got that bug to go out and
I feel like I'm learning all the time, to be honest. I'm still regularly Googling how to do things, and brushing up my knowledge, or there's things I come across which I think I'm not quite sure what they mean by that, so I'll research it. So I'm definitely still learning as I go, and I've got a lot to learn. And I've sort of always, I know I do have this quite strong aesthetic, and my work all looks fairly similar, I suppose, but I've also tried never to pigeonhole myself. Like I went to Iceland, and it was very moody and rainy, and there wasn't much colour to be found, and I photographed black beaches at midnight, and I totally rolled with it, and was like, I'm not going to not take or post these photos because they don't fit my grid. So
you haven't taken them for Instagram, you've taken them for yourself.
Exactly.
And then the kind of work side of you goes well.
While I was there, just being out. I think the best things always happen when you're out of your comfort zone, and that's why I've loved traveling with my camera, because you get thrust into a situation where you have no choice but to try and photograph that. You can't go back at golden hour, you can't go back the next day when the lighting's better. You might be photographing a city in the pouring rain or in incredibly bright sunshine, and you've got no choice but to go with that. And like when I was in Iceland, there was a lot of the time it was grey and rainy, and so there's just no colour in the landscape at all. But that's when I've kind of learnt the most, is when I've pushed myself like that. And
was it when you were in Iceland there was lots of like that you found a lot more colour in like the buildings, is that right?
Yes, I did photograph some buildings out there, and yeah, all sorts really, ponies and horses and waterfalls and beaches, and yeah, 4 days out there, and I completely exhausted myself.
Yeah.
I had a car and drove 1,000 kilometers on my own.
Wow.
But it was an amazing trip, not just photography wise, but personally, to go and be brave and do something like that on my own.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because that's, you know, on one of our recent kind of podcasts, we were talking about how photography can help you, like mental health, and I think that's true. The more people we talk to, and the more people that have reached out to us about the same thing, it really resonates, because it does, you know, you push yourself to go out to places that you wouldn't normally go to, I guess, and you've got a purpose to go there and do it. But, you know, no matter if no one sees the photos or you share them, whatever it might be, it's still, you know, an adventure to go on, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's one thing that, I mean, photography has given me so much, but it's, you know, it's one thing that I've definitely found is when I travel alone, I don't feel like I'm traveling alone because I've got my camera. So it's almost like, oh no, I'm not like just a sad person who's got no one to come on holiday with me. I'm taking photos.
Yeah.
And not that anybody should need that excuse, but it helped me to set foot on a plane on my own because I was going to take photos. And I think it's nice when, you know, I think it helps a lot of people to kind of have that purpose to go on a trip or to go to a place which they might not otherwise have the confidence to do. So
yeah,
as a photographer who, because obviously you photograph everything, right? Everything that you come across that you like, you're going to take a photo of. Do you have that kind of little niggle in your head that, like, I sometimes have it if I'm going out to, say, shoot one day, I can't even drive. Like, I'm constantly looking at what I could be taking a photo of. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, my brain doesn't even kind of, I'm just in photo mode. But when you want to take photos of everything, is that kind of how your mind works as well?
It is, and I think, you know, we probably all do it when you're driving down the motorway and you're like, oh, that field looks amazing. How do I get to that? How do I get to that solo tree perched on top of the horizon there? But I think I've also learned to kind of to allocate time to it quite well, because I'm often doing it with my kids, and so when we've been paid to travel places or, you know, work with a tourist board or something, I don't want them to ever feel like they've been dragged along, or they're just, you know, being told to do this or stand there, walk there, do this, do that. And most of the time they don't really even notice that I'm taking photos of them, or they sort of say, oh, did you take some photos that day? So I try to, you know, kind of
find that balance.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's good though, because if they, you know, clearly they support you, and if they don't even notice that you're taking a photo, but they want to see, or that they've asked you what photos have you got today, clearly they're interested. Do you know what I mean? Which is nice.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean, having that balance.
And definitely more so as they get older, they're getting more and more interested in what it is that I do.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, are they getting into it as well?
A little bit. I think they're just becoming more aware of like what social media is and stuff like that. And yeah, whereas obviously a few years ago they knew I was a photographer, but they didn't know I was working on Instagram and stuff. So I've always kind of said to them, are you guys happy to be involved? You know, I've been approached by such and such a company, they want to take a photo of you guys. Are you okay with that? Are you happy with it? And usually it means them getting a free something or other out of it. So usually they're like, yeah, that's cool. But yeah, if we do go away somewhere with work, like recently I did a trip to Kent with Mazda, and you know, I might feel like I'm working because I'm very much sort of in that mind frame, but I don't want them to feel like they're working. So I'll very much kind of get to a location and think about what's going to work, where's the sun going to set, what's the weather doing, what backdrops work, and maybe have a little walk around, scout things out, and then say, okay, well, before tea or after tea or whatever, we'll set aside an hour and we'll take photos. Are you guys okay with that? And then it's just kind of like, oh, why don't you go and sit on the swing, or why don't you walk down there, or why don't you play in the pool? And I'll just snap some pictures because I've already kind of thought through what's going to work and what's going to look nice and
That's good.
where the sun's going to set. Yeah, so it's kind of, I try to limit it rather than constantly following around with my phone or with my camera in their faces. So
But I suppose if you have kind of scouted out and kind of have a rough idea of what will work or what you want to do, at least you can kind of pick up the camera and do that, and, you know, not waste too much time doing it, you know what I mean? Because like you said, there's that balance of, you know, you're there with your family, you want to enjoy it, not just be thinking about work 24/7.
yes, exactly. And, you know, I suppose that is partly what I'm being paid to do as well, is to convey that we are genuinely enjoying this experience. So if we're genuinely not, then it isn't something I feel like I can promote, or it isn't something that's going to come across very well. So it is kind of an important balance to find on all fronts, really, not just work-wise and for my children, but, you know, it's got to be that way, really, to go and enjoy it. But I think that's where experience now helps as well, because I've got so much better at knowing what photos will work for me. And for example, if I turn up somewhere and there's no decent light, or there's just no good backdrops, then you can kind of, like, hotels can be very tricky, you know, you might have lots of unnatural light going on. So you kind of get a few workarounds through experience, like maybe shooting breakfast on the bed. That's something which is always going to fit your feed, and you can make look really nice if you order lots of food. So that's just an example that you do kind of get a bit more practiced at knowing what workarounds you can come up with if it's not looking good.
Yeah. Cool.
And have you got any kind of like brands or companies that you've worked with? I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this, but if you are, any brands, companies or products that you love, you know, what's your favourite? Or I don't know if you're allowed to pick.
I've always tried to be very discerning about what I've said yes to, and, you know, I do think we have some, I hate the word influencer, but I think everybody has influence to an extent. Whether you've got 500 friends on Facebook, we all are having influence over people who we connect with and talk to, any caption we write, or, you know, we all have that influence to an extent. And I think we all need to have some responsibility over not just churning out utter rubbish. But I've sort of always realised, really, that people aren't going to want to keep following me if I suddenly promote something which is completely out of keeping with my style. And I've tried to kind of expand my work into other things other than just brand work in recent years. So I try to mainly promote things which are either travel or photography related, which I feel like, you know, really suit what I'm doing, and hopefully my followers will be interested in as well. So,
And that's genuinely your passion, so why wouldn't you do that, right?
That's it. Sometimes, you know, like the Mazda trip we did recently, I did a car a long time ago and found it really, really difficult. And I sort of said to myself, I don't want to do another car. But then that was combined with travel, and it was such a lovely trip, which they'd put together, and it was really genuinely very enjoyable. And I saw no issue in, you know, taking the opportunity to take my kids somewhere really nice, do something lovely, the three of us, and you know, earn a living from that as well. And I just thought, yeah, why not? You know, if it's something that's genuinely going to be really fun to do, then I think I've sort of earned that right, really.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's proper, like, living the dream, though, isn't it? Like, getting to do, you know, earn a living doing travel and photography, and having your kids involved in everything at the same time.
yeah,
Perfect, isn't it?
yeah, I've been incredibly lucky, and it's given me, you know, just my financial freedom and an awful lot of self-confidence, which has been essential because I've been single mum for 5 years, so I've been doing this alone and paying the bills and putting the roof over our heads. So it doesn't come without pressure. The pressure is all very much on my shoulders to make this work.
Yeah.
But it's given me some amazing opportunities to take the kids places that I never would have been able to otherwise. So
I think that's great, and I think I might have mentioned something like this before on a previous episode or whatever, but if you are doing what you love, people say, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. But even, if you're, I don't know, professional golfer and you that's all you've wanted since you was a kid, you're still going to have good days and bad days, even if you've got that dream. Do you know what I mean? So there's always going to be hard days, or, times where you've got to work harder than other times, but at least you can kind of look back on it and say, what I'm doing is actually pretty cool. Yeah, today was hard, or last month was hard, or whatever, but at least it's cool to say that you're working in a field that you enjoy, that is, you are passionate about.
That's it, and I think that's what spurs me on, really, because my job, there's a lot of drudgery. I still have to do my accounts and do boring stuff like that. I'm running a business, so there's all of upkeep with my website and stuff like that. So I'm sat at my computer like anybody else a lot of days of the week, and plus there's that pressure that always comes with a self-employed job or in a creative industry, that you can never guarantee where the next paycheck is coming from, which is why I've tried to work more with developing online courses to sort of hopefully give myself a bit of background income. So I'm always trying to think to the next step, really, to try and cement something which I could potentially still be doing in 10 years' time.
I was looking at your stuff on Skillshare. Like, how recent has that been that you've been doing that for? Is that quite a new?
So Skillshare approached me about 2 years ago, and it took a while for us to sort of get the course started. And then we worked remotely, and I worked with a producer in New York, and we kind of came up with a course outline, which I then fleshed out and wrote the course. And then I flew to New York to film the first course, and I got back about 3 days before lockdown in March.
Wow.
So that was incredibly stressful. Because obviously my kids were here, I was in New York, and everything was getting a bit wild, and it was
proper Home Alone moment there, isn't it?
Yeah, it really was, yeah. But I made it back all's well that ends well, and I was incredibly relieved to have got that done. And it was a really great experience. The team over there were fantastic. I really enjoyed it. So that was released last August. And then I decided to try, and because that course was made with Skillshare and funded by them, so they paid for my trip over to New York and all the expenses, so they own the rights to that course. So I decided to try and create another course which I own the rights to, which could be then sold off my website or shared on other online learning platforms as well. So I wrote that through the autumn and filmed it in December, and it was sort of edited and ready to go around March time. And then I did a bit more work on it and launched it on Skillshare, and I've been kind of procrastinating with getting it over the line and onto my website, and I've sort of lost confidence with it a bit. But now the kids are back at school, I kind of, over the summer, I was just like, oh, well, take the summer, everyone's on holiday anyway. So yeah, now the kids are back, and I need to get my arse into gear and get that sorted. So yeah.
You do tutorials as well, is that right?
Yeah, so that was something which just, it kind of, I mean, I suppose like all of these things, like Skillshare contacted me, and it was massively, terrifyingly out of my comfort zone. But I tell myself on the daily, if they think I can do it, then I must be able to do it. And that's my mantra that I tell myself. And I think, well, if they want to hire me, then they must think I can do this.
Yeah.
So the same with teaching students. It's, you know, something people started contacting me about years ago, and I did like a live what's the webinar with Adobe, which was the single most terrifying thing I've ever done.
I couldn't think of anything more terrifying than that, to be honest.
Really,
especially with that name just hanging over you like Adobe. Yeah,
I know, it was
all eyes on me.
very tough. But yeah, I suppose when you repeatedly get asked, do you do teaching or have you got a course, and you kind of, like with all these things, they sort of get dangled in front of me, and I think, well, if you don't go for it, you're never going to know. So I keep on following these carrots, hoping that everything's going to be okay. Yeah, so that's, but I really enjoy teaching, actually. And even if I have to brush up on something that somebody's asked me to go through with them, I do find that I can convey it to people, and I really enjoy sort of, I just enjoy that interaction. And
I suppose that's a confidence boost, you know, outside of photography. Like you said, you're nervous to do it, but now you're doing it, right? It's you know, you feel a little bit more comfortable with it every time you do it, and you still get to meet those new people. But is that something that you offer? Just, you know, is it just a case of sending you a message and arranging whatever suits you and the kind of customers' preferences, or is it something that you offer through the website?
Yeah, it is on my website, but usually people just drop me a message, and it's something which I ought to push more, really, like with everything I do. I'm not very good at self-promoting myself on Instagram, and I ought to be pushing my courses and my prints, and I ought to be developing presets.
We can help you with the prints.
You're absolutely going to help me with that. But yeah, I kind of constantly feel the pressure that there's a million things I should be doing.
But that goes back to the work-life balance, doesn't it? You don't want to be stressing out, pushing everything. If that's, you know, if you don't want to do it, then don't do it, or, you know, not do it. But do you know what I mean? You've got to be in the right headspace to be able to give it your all, I guess.
Yeah, you do, and I think it's a bit of a strange one as a creative person. It's very much your creative energy very much ebbs and flows, and I think I've learned to accept that to an extent, although you never not feel guilty when you're not working. I think it's always on your mind. Maybe that's just a self-employed thing, but you're sort of always just running over all the extra things that you could be doing. But, you know, I'm saying this after 18 months of disruption and homeschooling my children, and which was just hell, really. You know, it's not something any parent really signed up for suddenly. And it wasn't like, you know, home ed. It was like we literally were just, here they were at home with us every day, and you have
one day they weren't, then all of a sudden they are, and you've got to quickly learn to adapt to that. I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't imagine how hard that is, but I know, Luke, you are as well. But and, you know, I work with people that are, and all of a sudden, you know, overnight kids are at home now, like, then they start worrying about the work that they've got to do because they're worried about the kids, and it's a weird one, isn't it?
It was a massive juggling act, massive. And so I think I feel a little bit like I'm still, I don't know, still replenishing my energy a little bit. I feel a bit drained, and I know a lot of people are feeling that kind of, you keep thinking it's over, or, you know, it's coming to an end now, but actually none of us know what tomorrow holds. And I think, you know, the kids are back, but our case is going to go wild. Is, you know, what's going to happen? You can't really take anything for granted anymore, can you? You can't think, I'm going to go on that holiday, I've got that to look forward to, or I'm going to go to my friend's wedding, that's going to be really exciting, because you just literally have no guarantees at all. And all summer, even, you know, I went to Northumberland with my parents, which was really lovely, and the kids, obviously, and all the dogs. But right up until the day before, you're thinking, am I going to get pinged? Am I going to have to not go? Is one of us going to test positive? So we're all in the same boat, but you literally just can't look forward to anything, can you? So
well, I can definitely say, hand on heart again, if you're listening to this and you want to reach out to Hannah, not to put any pressure on you, Hannah, but when I first reached out to you, I said to Luke, I was like, I found this awesome photographer. She's from Northampton. I'm going to send her a message and we're not going to hear anything because she's got 45 million followers and she's not going to read it. You got back to us in about 10 minutes. So I was super happy. And then, we got to know you. Yeah. But I think that shows volumes in terms towards your attitude towards your kind of work, if that makes sense. Because it shows that you're human as well, right? And it's not just something that you feel like you have to do. And there's times where you're like, oh, I can't be bothered, but we all have that in all areas of life. But at the end of the day, you're still doing it, which is admirable.
Yeah, it's quite a hard thing as well, isn't it, when you say you're always looking at yourself, and it's easy to get quite self-deprecating over, oh, I should be doing this, should be doing that, but there's somebody looking at what you're doing going, look at how much they're doing, it's incredible, I should be doing what they're doing. And there's probably somebody looking at them going, oh, why can't I be doing what they're doing? So it's like, it's always so easy to look at other people and just think, wow. It's like sometimes Jamie will post a photo and I'll message him being like, man, that photo you posted is amazing. And he's like,
I'll be like, that was Hannah's, you idiot.
Yeah. But like sometimes like one of my friends will post something and I will message them, not on Instagram. I won't comment on it. I'm like, it's too good for that. I'm going to message them personally and tell them how much I like it. And they always say, or invariably, oh, I didn't really think that much of it. I just thought I'd check it up. And it's always that, isn't it? You like, I'll take something and Jamie will see and be like, wow. And I think, well, it's not that good. It's so easy to get into that sort of mindset, and it's really hard to get yourself out of it as well. But
yeah, it is. It's very easy to talk yourself down. And I don't know whether it's a creative thing, but I don't really know anyone like who genuinely feels really confident in what they're doing. I think we all kind of constantly feel like we could have done better, we could improve, or we want to go and do it again and do it better next time. And like you could be doing more, you could be working harder, you could be producing more, creating more. And I do sometimes have to give myself a bit of a talking to. And like 5 minutes ago, I was just telling you that I wrote and filmed an online course, which so I suppose I did that straight after homeschooling my kids for 4 months. And so I think, well, I did do that in the last year, so that's okay.
Yeah. When you look back on it all, you realise how much you've done and how much you've achieved, and you continue to achieve. Then that's a nice feeling. It's reassurance. And going back to what you said as well, like earlier on when you were saying you hate the word influence. I guess like all of us, right? But you can be influenced by people that aren't necessarily in your field. Do you know what I mean? Like you were just saying, Luke, you might see something of mine and you're like, that inspires you to post something or go out and take some photos. My girlfriend's a graphic designer, and when I see her working on her own stuff, or sometimes when she's working, a 9-to-5 job, she inspires me to want to go out and do what I'm doing, because I'm like, well, I shouldn't be sitting here watching Netflix. I should be doing something towards that. What I want to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you can be influenced by lots of different things, can't you?
Yeah, I think we all give each other energy in that way, really. I think, positive energy feeds more positive energy. When you've got people around you who are creating and feeling good about what they're creating, it definitely feeds into you, which is why it's nice because obviously I don't live with anybody who is, giving me any positive vibes. The dog's nice. It's nice for me to go and meet other photographers sometimes, because you just kind of rub off on each other a bit, don't you? And
massively, definitely.
I was having this conversation the other day. I texted you, didn't I? I said I actually went to Milton Keynes. Obviously, it's only up the road for us. And I was like, I'm going to do some street photography today. practice, homage my skills, whatever you want to call it. But it was horrible. I said to Luke, I got back and I was like, yeah, I went to Milton Keynes today, but took a lot of photos, but I'm not really that happy with any of them. I've missed focus or whatever it was. But forget about the quality of the photos. I didn't enjoy it as much on my own. I wanted to kind of be there with someone, because you have such a sense of confidence when you're there with someone, because you can kind of pretend to be professional photographers, right? It's not like it's not like you're just weirdly walking around with the camera taking photos of people. But I don't know. I don't know. But then again, I like going out on my own and trying to do some like landscape photography stuff. To me, that's a nice meditation, if you like, of going out, and it's therapeutic to go out and just take some photos on my own for a couple of hours, or drive somewhere.
Never a wasted exercise, even if you didn't like what you got, because you can guarantee you'll have learnt something from taking those photos, even if you didn't.
How Not to Take a Photo by Jamie Cooper. That's what it is.
Do a course on that.
Yeah, I have this kind of thing of always wanting to, like, I'll spot things that are like kind of mundane but interesting. Like I don't know, the example I'm thinking of is like a shopping trolley, and it was just up against someone's house, but there was like another shopping trolley flipped on its side and there was a shadow coming across, and I quite like the kind of composition of it. And I thought, if someone saw me taking a photo of this, they'd think, what the hell are you doing? And I stood there for a minute, like lining it up, and took a photo. And as I did it, some bloke walked past and was literally started saying to me, why are you taking a photo of that? And I had to try and, I was like, this is everything that I'm worried about when I'm taking these sorts of photos. I had to try and explain to him, and he was like, oh, right, well, it might be worth something one day. Like, keep trying.
Oh, so you're a photographer? Well, no, actually, I just like taking photos of weird shit. What else do you say?
Yeah. My kids always say it to me. If I'm like, oh, stop 1 second, there's a shadow. And I heard my son the other day go, oh, Daddy's just taking another boring photo. Well, it's kind of like a desert island question in terms of, if you could have one camera and one lens, and if you also, as you've done, shoot on film, one type of film, like, what would you pick?
Well, it's sat right here, actually.
Oh, that's good. You've already got your dream camera.
Right here, my Nikon D850. This is a Sigma 35mm 1.4. I think if I could only use one lens for the rest of my life, I'd probably use my 50mm 1.4. It's a tricky one. I'm quite a lens freak. I have a lot of lenses, but I love a prime, and my 35mm and my 50mm are probably my favourites.
I feel like you've got me into lenses, Luke, recently. I was all about the camera body. I was like, oh yeah, I need this camera, and then you kind of think about it, you're like, well, no, I just need the lens, to be honest. As long as the camera operates to the level I want it to operate. I know it's a weird one, because obviously there's still very, but do you know what I mean? You get more into the lenses, the more you kind of deep dive into it.
And especially shooting film as well. It's like the body is like the least important thing. But yeah, when you were shooting film, was there anything in particular that you liked, like using, like particular types of film, or did you not quite get into that minefield?
No, I haven't gone that far into it yet. So
it's a whole other world. It's
I think it felt so big that I was really daunted to kind of dive into it. And I'd used instant cameras before and things like that. I'd taken a few films of Polaroids, but actually like shooting a proper roll of film, something I hadn't done since I was about 10. And it just felt really, really scary. I've never developed film, so
that's another one as well. Have to get into. There's a few cool things though, like different what do you call them, like subscription clubs around, where they'll just send you like a couple of random rolls of film a month, so you can just try loads of different stuff. And that's quite a good thing to like test out. And you found, like, I've done that in the past and found some film that I really enjoy using that I probably would never have picked up otherwise. So that's quite a nice way of doing it.
That's a really good idea, actually. I'll have to try that.
Yeah, I have to send you some links to a couple of good ones. But
Yeah.
Have you got any camera accessories that you can't live without, or is it just a case you go out with just the camera?
Camera and tripod usually. So I love my tripod, and I've used it masses, and obviously for work it's helped me enormous because I shoot all my photos myself, ones with me in, apart from the occasional help for if someone's nearby, but the vast majority of them I take of myself by myself, if that makes sense.
So I think that's amazing, just because I don't know, I always look at photos, like self-portrait photos, and they always look amazing. You know, because people don't appreciate that you're trying to give a certain look away. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, I guess they do appreciate it, but it's hard to kind of grab the concept of you're not just trying to take a photo of yourself, you're trying to take a photo of yourself in a certain situation, and you want the photo to be good and you also to look good in that photo, right?
Yeah.
And then you always forget that, okay, I've got a 10-second timer, I've got to leg it now, and then I've got to look really look really natural. Do you know what I mean? I always think that's amazing.
It's quite a process, and it's something that I never would have done had I not got a job where I needed to be in a photo, and I literally kind of went out and bought. I'd been given a tripod for my birthday. I went and bought that thing, which I don't know what it's called, that goes on the bottom, and so I could actually attach my camera to my tripod and shot myself on a timer for the very first time. And as soon as I put myself in a photo, I started getting more job offers where I needed to be in the photo. So it was something which I was kind of not forced into, but you know what I mean? I didn't choose to do off my own bat. It was a means to an end, and then it sort of became another arm to my bow, if you like. It was another, just another type of photo that I had in my armoury. And you know, I can remember situations like traveling in Dubai. I was working for the Dubai Tourist Board, and you look at a scene in front of you and you think it would just look so much better with a figure in, and you know, you start to look at yourself quite objectively as just a figure in a scene. So I sort of somehow, from being incredibly self-conscious and hating being in front of the camera, just managed to sort of objectify myself a bit. And it was just like, well, this scene just literally looks better with someone walking into it. And so it just became a tool, really, a tool of creating images, which you know, expanded my repertoire quite a lot, and therefore was helpful.
I suppose it's a confidence boost as well, because you know, we all like to be loved, right? So it's nice when you're getting positive feedback on those kind of photos as well, because it gives you that sense of confidence that you can actually do it and you're doing it well.
Yeah, I used to literally physically feel like I was going to vomit pressing send on Instagram. When it was a photo with me in, literally I'd be green around the gills and I'd just be like shaking like a leaf. But that does pass, and you definitely get used to seeing yourself in photos, and you know, I think we all have to kind of try and tell ourselves what the heck we look like we do. You know, no point in worrying about it overly, is there? So just crack on with it, sort of thing. So, and then it's become also a really wonderful thing to be able to document my life with the kids, and some of my favourite photos ever when I've, you know, actually set up the camera and got in there with my children, because there's no one around to take photos of me with my kids. So there's sort of a gap in a period of time where I don't exist in photos until I started taking them myself, and now I have some really lovely kind of memories and family portraits, if you like, with children, which I really treasure. So
Some of my favourite work of yours is the ones of you and your family, or whatever it might be, because I guess it's relatable in a lot of way. Even though I haven't got a family and kids, it's kind of where you are and the kind of things that I would do and the way that I would want to kind of explore. I get the sense of feeling that you like to go out and explore wherever you are. And maybe because I'm like that as a person, I like to go somewhere. I would never want to kind of just sit down and read a book for a week on a sunbed or anything. I'd want to go out and explore. And that's what kind of the feeling that I get from some of your photos. I'm like, now I want to go there. Brilliant. Another one to add on the bucket list.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
There's a lot of people that we interact with and stuff who are, trying to make a name for themselves and things like that. And is there anything like advice that you would give to those people, or anything you wish that you'd known when you started out?
I mean, there's so much really. There's a few kind of legal things which I wish I'd known, like not giving away copyright on your photos, which a lot of contracts will land in your lap and expect photographers to sign away the copyright, which you don't ever need to do. You can sign away the usage rights or grant usage rights. You don't have to give away your copyright. And so I get a lot of direct messages or messages from people who are like me and they've been approached by a brand for the very first time. They've maybe, got a few thousand followers and brands are starting to send them emails. And I try to always be very open and transparent and help people to, what they should be charging and all that sort of thing, because I truly think there's enough room for everybody and we don't have to be in competition with each other. So we're all kind of alone a little bit with our phones, aren't we? So yeah, I try to help people whenever they ask for any advice or anything like that. But I think just as a photographer on the whole, I'm a strong believer that developing an aesthetic and a look to your images will stand you in really good stead, whether you're a portrait photographer or a wedding photographer,
or someone who takes photos of trolleys.
Exactly. I think having a level of consistency helps people to want to hire you because they know what to expect, with whatever situation. I think I hope if somebody wants to hire me to go and work in Kent or in Dubai or in Venice or whatever it is, they can hopefully rely on the standard of work and the sort of aesthetic and the mood, if you like, that I'm going to deliver. So yeah, I think that would be my best piece of advice, really, without pigeonholing yourself, obviously.
And are you always, for the most part, because I guess as all kind of artists and designers or whatever it might be, creative people are, they're not always going to be 100% happy. But for the most part, are you always happy with, certainly with like the kind of paid work that you do? Are you happy to kind of hand that over with a sense of confidence that, it has got a bit of you in there?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think I'm probably as critical as any of us are of our work, and I know that I'm still learning. I know that I've got an awful lot more to learn, and hopefully I'm improving. So I do sometimes look back on a shoot I've done a couple of years ago, and I think the quality of my work has improved, which is a good feeling. But yeah, I think most of the time I know I always do my best anyway. I won't turn something in unless I feel that I've kind of fulfilled the brief and done myself proud, because at the end of the day, I'm compromising my whole brand if I end up having to post something which is not going to work or isn't of a good standard. So there has been times in the past where I fought quite hard to have an opportunity to reshoot or to change the brief or change a scenario because it's just really not working. So I think sometimes you have to stick to your guns a bit and have enough confidence in your your knowledge of what you're doing, to really push back a bit and say, you know, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to look good, my followers won't like it, my client won't like it, whatever it is, and kind of thrive on a bit in that way.
That's really cool. That was actually going to be my next question, and that kind of that reminds me of when we spoke to our friend Paul Hughes on the podcast, because he's a professional photographer. You know, that's his 9 to 5, if you like, as a professional photographer, and he does a lot of work for like Guinness World Records and stuff like that. And one of the questions we asked him was, you know, are you happy with your work, or do you ever have to kind of convince people that it will work better, and you need to trust me on that because you've hired me to be the photographer, you need to trust my photography skills, if that makes sense. And he was like, yeah, all the time. You know, there'll be so many times I get a brief and I do the brief, but I also do my own thing in there as well, and my work will be, you know, the non-brief work will be the ones that are selected, and that's where you kind of do need to stick to your guns and appreciate that, you know, you have got knowledge of it. You've been employed for a reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and it can be really difficult to do, but I think you somehow you dig deep and find an inner confidence, because the pressure to put out something which is people are just going to look at and go, what the heck, I didn't expect that from her. You know, that's going to damage you so much in the long run. So you kind of have to really dig deep and find that inner confidence to say, no, this isn't working, we need to rethink, or I've done this is much better, what do you think? So